An X-ray camera is just a digital camera. So when incorporated in a box, it is very safe and it is very mobile. So it is easy to put it in multiple locations around the hospital and send the images over the internet or the intranet to the radiologist in the hospital. It's just with technology, it has become a lot more in demand.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. We have another special episode today. I'm with the power couple behind Kubtec, a technology manufacturing company right here in Stratford, Connecticut. Vikram, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast, so we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
At the core, we make X-ray in a box. The reason we make it is because I couldn't find a job. So
many entrepreneurs, their story, right, is couldn't find a job or not employable by anyone else, so I might as well start my own business.
There you go.
So why this business? Maybe help us understand sort of the background. You know, how did Kubtec come to being? And
so I used to work for an industrial X-ray company doing a lot of projects with the Department of Defense. So this is in the late 90s, early 2000, the cutting edge of digital X-ray at that point. And I left the company in 2004, the end of 2004, and I didn't know what to do. I was... X-ray is a small industry, and I was just thinking, what do I do next? And January 2005, we had a 3-year-old son. My wife and I went down to Disney to just take a break. And I had a friend who was retired, living in the Villages just north of Orlando. Yeah. And I went to meet with him, and he is a retired engineer from the X-ray industry. And he was like, why don't you do this? You know, you could start this, do it on your own. And my wife, when I sat down with Preeti and I discussed this with her, and she was like, yes, you should do this. She was the one who kind of was like, no, go ahead. So we came back and... I called a few hospitals in the neighborhood, and St. Vincent's in Bridgeport, the director of radiology said, oh yeah, we need one of those, but I'm new in my job. Why don't you talk to purchasing? So I called purchasing, and purchasing said, yeah, sure, come and meet with us. So I went off to Kinko's and I printed a PowerPoint presentation, what is now FedEx office. And I went to meet the purchasing guy in the basement at St. Vincent's. And he said, I want to give you the order just because you've come to meet with me, because the other company faxed us a price list and said, call us when you're ready to place the order. So, I mean, right there was lesson number one. You should take care of your customers.
That's right.
And we got the order. He was looking to buy one machine. They ended up buying 2 machines for $150,000. They gave me a check for $37,500, and I had to run to incorporate and open a bank account. And it happened in early summer of 2005, and we delivered the first machines by the fall of 2005, and that's what got us started.
So I'm always so fascinated by the fact that there's all these like little industries or even big ones that people don't always think about, right? I mean, everyone listening to this podcast has probably gotten an X-ray
right.
At one time or another. And I think there's like a perspective out there, or certainly my perspective was like that this was dominated by the giant X-ray companies we know of. Everyone's heard of GE, everyone's heard of Siemens, like that's what you're seeing everywhere. So what is the niche you were able to carve out? Like what does St. Vincent's need that they weren't getting from these giant multinationals?
That's a great question. Actually, when someone goes for a mammogram and if they see something and they get a biopsy, those excised tissue specimen need to be x-rayed. And they don't x-ray small pieces of tissue in a big x-ray room. So we design a box that is specifically for imaging excised tissue. It starts off with the biopsy specimen in radiology. The next step is in the OR, when they take out the actual cancer. And then the step after that is in pathology in the gross room, where they need to do the actual analysis of the tissue to confirm the disease. So every one of those places, they need X-ray. In the old days, when they were doing film X-ray, it wasn't as ubiquitous because the X-ray film would have to be taken to radiology to process it. Mm-hmm. But now an X-ray camera is just a digital camera. So when incorporated in a box, it is very safe and it is very mobile. So it is easy to put it in multiple locations around the hospital and send the images over the internet or the intranet to the radiologist in the hospital. It's just with technology, it has become a lot more in demand.
So maybe I should have even taken one giant step backwards, because I've had the benefit of going to your website and seeing what's on there. Not everybody listening maybe has done that yet. So maybe paint a picture of the difference between what Kubtec does and what most people think of about going in somewhere, lying on a table, having that machine come over you, don't move, they put the little pad or whatever in. Maybe you explain the difference between what you guys do and what that is, because I think that's, you sort of got around it, the mobility, but I think that's a big part of the distinction.
Right. So we don't build X-ray systems for live human imaging. Every one of our X-ray systems is integrated in a box, and it's self-contained. So you could be standing at the box, at the system while the X-ray is on, but you're very safe. So right. All the staff in the hospital that use it to image tissue specimen, they're not exposed to the X-rays.
They don't have to put on the lead gown.
Right.
So
right.
Like, how big is the box?
Our smallest one is the size of a PC. It sits on a bench top. And the largest one we make could be the size of a room, 8 feet by 8 feet by 10 feet tall or something.
And so what are the different applications? So what would I use? You said a PC, so it's like 12 or 18 inches tall by maybe
right.
roughly the same. So like what do I use that for versus what do I use a giant 8 foot by 8 foot?
We have a couple of very unique applications. Of course, our biggest focus is breast cancer and systems that we build for breast cancer and imaging excised tissue. And the smallest one is used in radiology when they do the biopsy to image those biopsy cores.
So I get the biopsy, and then the way I validate what's inside from a cancer perspective is take another image of it. So, I mean, most people are familiar with what a mammogram is. So you get a mammogram if you see something in there and they decide to biopsy it. They take the piece out, and then they put that biopsied tissue into your machine, into the Kubtec machine,
right,
to find out how much cancer is in it, basically?
Well, they want to make sure that what they saw in the mammogram, they were able to take that out in the biopsy specimen, because that then goes to pathology, where the pathologist confirms if it is cancer.
Got it. So it's a confirmation step along
right,
the way,
right.
Making sure we got out what we thought we were going to get out.
Because
so
the
you
last
compare
thing,
it back to the original mammogram?
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is take something out, don't make sure you got it, and then have the patient come back for another biopsy. I mean, somebody who feels like they've got cancer or has been told it may be cancer, there's enough stress. You don't want to add to that.
No, you definitely don't. And you want answers quickly.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
everyone. Well, I'm sure everyone knows someone who's been through it. It
Yes.
could be close. It's a very, very stressful time. You want answers as quickly as possible,
Right.
and you guys enable that.
Yes.
So, talk a little bit about how the business got sort of started. I mean, you're in Stratford. Stratford's well known around the state of Connecticut for making other machines,
Right.
Machines that fly with rotors,
Yes.
less with imaging. Talk a little bit about the background of the company. I mean, you start with an order. I mean, such a great story. Sort of bootstrapping it, have an idea, and then you got to make it happen. How did you get from that sort of first order to production? Is the stuff patented? Like, give me some of that. Those details.
So that was in 2005, and I found a local assembly shop in Milford who assembled the systems for us. And I mean, at that time, I was just excited to sell a few machines. And so my idea was, we will build these and I will get GE or Siemens or some of these big guys to sell them for me, and I'll sit on the beach and count the money.
How'd that work out?
So we started growing in Milford. I took a little bit of space in the warehouse from the assembler. And then as we grew, it got to a point where I had more space in that warehouse than the assembler did, which was good. We did have GE and Siemens selling our product with their equipment. And we had another company, this was in about 2008, that started selling our product. And we started growing pretty rapidly. Till in 2012, the company that was selling our product copied it and came out with their own version of the product. No. And we had no patents, we had no protection. But it was a great lesson to learn. We went back to the drawing board. And I mean, since 2012, it took us 3 years to barely kind of keep our head above water. And we developed, those were all 2D systems, and we developed a 3D system. We built patents around it. We added technology that nobody else in the world was offering. And then in 2016, we introduced the world's first intraoperative 3D imaging system for excised breast tissue. Along the way, there were other lessons we learned. We built a live human imaging system, the first one we built for neonatal imaging. It was very unique. It had the highest resolution, the lowest dose. But again, we had no patents around it. And within 6 months or a year of us coming out with that product, the big guys, came out with competitive products. And that project just crashed and burned. But we learned our lesson.
Yeah, you did. So talk about that a little bit. I wonder if people could take some lessons from that. So you're coming into a new market, you partner with someone, they're selling, and then what, they realized, oh, these are selling like hotcakes. We should just sell ourselves.
Right.
And that was it.
That was it. And I wouldn't hold it against them. I mean, that's life.
That's life.
You need to make sure that whatever you do, you build protection around it.
Yeah.
And you have some competitive advantages that, the barriers to entry need to be tall and strong, that somebody can't just come in and take it away from you. And I mean, in 2000, so we introduced the 3D product in 2016, and it has been a hard climb, but it has gone well. In 2017, we moved out of that warehouse to, we bought a building in Stratford. And in 2018, we purchased the building in June of 2018. In September of 2018, on a Sunday afternoon, the building burnt down.
Stop.
There was nobody in the building. What we were told by the insurance company, their best guess was it was a lithium-ion battery on a fork truck that sparked the seat. and there was a propane tank behind the seat, and that blast, and so the building burnt down. We had over $1 million in inventory, computers, desks, everything burnt down. That happened on a Sunday afternoon. On Monday morning, every employee showed up and said, all right, tell us what you want us to do. Luckily, we backed up to the cloud every Friday. So we were able to access all our information. We called Dell. They sent us a server. The local town of Stratford, the mayor, the DECD helped us find a local facility that we were able to rent. So this happened on a Sunday. Everybody showed up on Monday. On Tuesday, we rented a place. By Thursday, we had a server. And all our phones were VoIP, so we were able to start taking calls. And again, this happened in September. By December, we were able to start shipping product again. But the important thing was, that everybody, all the people were, yes, whatever it takes, we're
banded
here.
Together.
Yes. And we had the 2018 was the best year in the history of the company till 2018. And then 2019 was an even better year. The building burnt down, but we had just bought that plot of land. So
Right.
we built a new building there, twice the size, and moved back in January this year.
Of just this year, 2021.
Yeah.
Man, you've been through it, Vikram.
Yeah.
You've been through it. You've been copied. You've been undercut. You've been burnt down. But you're here, taller and stronger. I guess you're living the whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, huh?
Absolutely. And yeah, we really, if Preeti and I believe one thing, it is, you need to always look at the glass half full.
Mm-hmm.
And
so when you think about the business today and what you guys are doing, 3D imaging is really driving what the success of the business is today. And who are your customers, and how do you see it continuing to grow?
So, I think most of us know 1 out of 8 women in the U.S. will be diagnosed with breast cancer. What a lot of people don't know is at least 1 out of 5 of them have to go back in for a second surgery because the surgeon doesn't get it the first time. And this is not the surgeon's fault, but they don't get it right. And so they have to, that's like more than 20% of the women have to go back in for a second surgery. The system we build, we've got publications now that prove that it can reduce the chances of that person having to come back by over 50% if the surgeon uses our system in the OR. And we designed this technology in 2016 and have been developing it. And now we've got systems installed all over New York City, right here in Connecticut, St. Mary's. Got the first system in the state of Connecticut. All over the world, we've got units in Japan, Australia, Poland, UK, the Middle East. And it's growing. And we do more than X-ray. I really enjoy what I do, and I'm always looking for ways to improve the quality of the product and the features we offer. We have the only system in the world where the surgeon can talk to the system. So like you talk to Siri or talk to
Alexa,
our system's called a Mozart, and the surgeon can say, hello, Mozart, and it'll respond, and they don't have to break scrub because they're in sterile attire in the OR, and they can
interface with the machine just through voice activation.
And we've got a patent around that. We've got a patent around, we take an optical image and an X-ray image, and they combine the two just like Superman to give you X-ray vision for the surgeon. We've got a patent around that. So we're constantly looking for ways to improve the technology, do better with the piece of real estate that we own in the OR. But having learned our lessons, make sure we always protect ourselves.
Yeah, protect the work that you do. So listen, I want to get Preeti on really soon and talk about some of the business execution stuff. But I think I'm really interested, and I think the audience would be interested in sort of how you think about go to market. You know, you got a very unique product, right? You got patents around it. It's a niche product, right? I mean, not every home in the U.S. is going to buy one of these things, right? It's a special, the target market's small. How do you think about go to market, and how do you manage trying to capture the market share when it's as you said, it could be right here in Waterbury or in Saudi Arabia? It's a lot of ground to cover,
right? We've really grown organically. Preeti and I own the company. We've always struggled to keep investment out just because we want to control the growth. But we have a great marketing team. We do a lot of talk about, making lemonade out of lemons. COVID happened and we built a studio and we do webinars all around the world. Just last week, we had a surgeon who's one of our users in New Orleans doing a webinar for a group of doctors in Thailand. So we were in our studio controlling it. He was talking in New Orleans, and the other doctors were sitting in Thailand. We did one yesterday with the surgeon in Seattle, and the doctors in Singapore, and we did a webinar for them talking about how to use the technology. So that's what we leverage, our marketing team and the technology at our disposal. And we've been using that to grow.
Using technology to sell technology.
There
Smart
you go.
move. What about last question, though I reserve the right to ask more. But what about service? Like, do you guys have to service those machines? So if there's a problem with the machine in Singapore, do you got to fly to Singapore to fix it? How does that work?
So, in the 90s, when there was the big bad China syndrome, everybody was afraid that the whole American manufacturing would go to China. I was always told, if you provide good service, you will always stay in business. Mm-hmm. So right from day one, the systems we've built have been digital systems with remote access. And 80% of the time, if there's a problem, we get a call. We have a bunch of engineers in our office in Stratford. They'll log in remotely and they'll take care of the problem. And if there is a component, and very rarely does that happen, but if there is a hardware failure, we will ship the part by FedEx. But we have a very strong service team, and we've always believed customer service. If you keep your customers happy, you'll always stay in business. And we've always lived by that mantra.
Been living with that mantra. Well, listen, actually, I think that's a really good cut to where we can talk to Preeti about the operations and culture and recruiting and growth. So I'm going to pause now and bring her on. Vikram, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ari.
Preeti, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with the question everybody who's watching wants to know. What's it like to work with Vikram?
Let's say we work well together, and then we take a break from each other.
I think a lot of people think about that. My wife and I have often talked about, since I own a business, she's talked about, what would it be like for me to come and work with you? And I think we've sort of decided we're good with the the separation of church and state at work.
Right.
But you guys seem to be making it work. How do you do it?
Well, we've actually worked together from the very beginning. When we first got married, we worked together for 6 months, and then we stopped because that was too much. And then we moved on to different jobs. And then when the business started happening, we had 2 kids, so I wanted to quit working and start helping him out. And I think it worked well for me because I didn't have to be present all the time at work while he did all of it, but we both kind of worked together in a different way.
Yeah.
And that has really worked for us.
Yeah, it probably helps when you're trying to, especially when you're early stages building the business. I built the business before I was married.
Right.
But in the early stages, it's so all consuming and there's so many challenges and setbacks.
Right.
To have someone in the trenches with you who really appreciates you and can be supportive is probably really great.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's fully involved with the business,
right?
And I can see it from the outside.
Yeah.
So we provide different perspectives to each other, in that way.
Hugely important to being successful. So when you think about your role in the business, what's your kind of key roles and key values you bring to the business?
Well, I think we both decided from the very beginning that we want to build a quality product and we want to be number one in service because customer is king. And that's something that we both agreed upon when we started the business. So it's kind of my job to see where the business is going and how to kind of support him in seeing the things he can't see when he's so involved in it.
Right.
So as a founder, I get to do cold calls from the beginning and call them out on things that are not going well.
Right. Are you involved much in like sort of the culture and the building, the people that make the business happen? Because, Vikram talked about the idea that when the building burnt down, that very Monday, the whole entire team was there ready to roll up their sleeves and help. That doesn't happen by accident.
No. I think we've been very fortunate, first of all. I have to give that credit to our employees. We've had just the most amazing people to work with. They put their heart and soul into whatever we were doing, very committed to our vision of what we were seeing forward. And the culture has always been that of, first of all, my idea was to have a flat organization. So there's no positions that someone's higher than you, someone's lower than you. We're all on the same page. If I have to pick up a broom and sweep the floor, I'll do it. And it's that attitude, I think, kind of that helped with the rest of, what happened over there. But it's important if I always feel a business is not a business unless you have appreciated your employees. So it's all about who's there. That's the reason I think we came out of the fire in that way, because the space didn't matter.
Right.
It was the people.
The people that were there.
Yeah.
So when you think about bringing people on that are going to sustain that culture, right? Because as a business grows,
it
can be hard to sustain that, right? Especially if you start growing fast, because now all of a sudden you need bodies, and sometimes you start to lose that. So how do you think, listen, everyone listening to this podcast wants to work in a place like you've described or wants to own a place like you've described, right? Where everyone on the team cares passionately about the success of the team. So when you think about how do you build that culture strategically, like what tips, what do you think you do to do it so successfully?
So again, I'm going to refer back to when the building burned down. We looked at it almost, I don't want to say as an opportunity because
I understand
of the obvious causes, but it's almost like, what are we going to do now?
Right.
So I think we kind of rethought the whole process of how we need to grow from here. And the first thing was, let's build something that attracts younger talent and makes the older talent comfortable. So the idea was to create a tech environment where we're attracting younger talent, because in Connecticut it's very hard to keep the young folks in Connecticut. They always want to go to bigger cities or bigger tech companies. I would do that, but how do you keep them here? So we kind of worked through the idea of creating a workspace that attracted that kind of talent, and creating a culture within that, and carrying forward what our thoughts were. We really value our employees and giving them back what they need. So if they need an environment where they want to socialize together, we want to do Fridays where there's a happy hour for them, and we celebrate birthdays. We kind of do breakfasts in the morning for each and every employee, because people come from different places. Some have eaten, some haven't. We don't want them to struggle with that. So it's there for you.
Everyone gets breakfast every day?
Every day.
100% of the time?
100% of
What do we get for breakfast?
So far, we've created a little lounge in between our, executive floor where everybody can come and congregate. And so we provide a cold breakfast because we don't have the permits to provide a hot breakfast. But it's like cereal, oatmeal,
nice,
muffins, fruits, smoothies, that kind
People
of stuff.
love their smoothies.
Yeah.
That's great. So when you rethought the space, it sounds like you didn't just go back and build like a standard, manufacturing design space, but you put some real thought into it to make it unique.
Yes, very much so. So our first floor, we kept it to production, and the second floor was more like an executive floor, but the offices are very comparable to any big tech company. So we have it's a very open space, and we also created a lounge, a game room, all of those facilities for anybody who wants to use it. We have a library there. We put some board games, and it just created a nice space for everybody to hang out, so to say. So people can actually alternate their workspaces. They have space where they could, go sit in the front lobby on the sofas and just work there. We have a little booth somewhere where if you want some privacy and you want to just go and sit and hang out, we have that as well for them.
So what are the kinds of employees that you guys are looking for at Kubtec?
We're looking for engineers. We're looking for dynamic marketing people. We're looking for every kind of person that would fit into.
Like we're talking about like what type of engineers? What type of engineers would work with you guys?
So mechanical, electrical, service engineers. So that's pretty much what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your strategy? We talked to a lot of manufacturers, right? And businesses in general, but manufacturers in particular are looking for people to come and work there. And I think it's really interesting to talk about what you guys are looking for, because you clearly have a unique environment. So someone might be interested in that.
Right.
And like, what's your strategy to go and find, these employees that you're looking for?
So I would say, in the past few years, we've approached universities that are local to us to look for talent there. So we get them on as interns and offer them jobs like most other companies do, but from the local companies. So UB has had a great engineering program. Fairfield U has an engineering program. Sacred Heart now does too.
Yep.
So anybody that's from the local area, that's kind of our approach to see. It's almost like promoting the fact that there is jobs in Connecticut. And, even if you go to university here, you can still stay in the state if you like it. So here's an opportunity. So somebody who's talented and is a go-getter is kind of what we would like. Someone who has design thinking, and it's important that they understand that they will be valued when they come into a company like us.
And have an opportunity to make an impact.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a pretty great kind of mission, to be able to go work at a place that's designing imaging that's saving people's lives, that's making a real impact on the fight against breast cancer. That's a pretty compelling offer, I would think.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I do hope so.
And what is it like what does the working at Kubtec look like? Is it just sort of like 8, 9 to 5 job? Do you guys have a lot like different opportunities? Kind of maybe talk me through that. What is it?
So before COVID, it happened, we were a 9 to 5 kind of organization. And once COVID happened, everybody kind of had to work from home or create other opportunities. So we can't do production from home. So our folks that do production have to be on the floor, but we created a whole environment for them where there was social distancing and it was safe. For the other folks, most of them worked from home. And I think in today's day and age, you have to create a hybrid environment. And that's what we're going for. So you can work from home for the most part. And we would like to see you in the office a couple of days so that we can connect with you, which is kind of very important for any company, I feel. Even if we want to do 100% work at home, we could do that. But I prefer to see the people. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, you talked about having young people. One of the things that we've sort of found is that young people especially like to kind of come in and have some contact, right? Otherwise they're sitting at home or in an apartment by themselves, staring at a screen all day. It's tough.
It's very lonely. And I think most young people do look for that now. They want to go into companies where they can eat, sit, socialize, do everything at the same place. They want to be where their friends are. They want to be doing things or have people doing the same things that they're doing. So looking for similarities. And it's something we came upon. One of our employees kind of told us it's very hard for him to be at our company because we don't have board games. And I'm like, okay. So
like Monopoly? Like what? Like a board? Really?
That's what he did.
There you go.
That was his, thing. And so we're like, okay, it's you just kind of I feel like if you interact with the younger folks, you get ideas for doing things differently because it's so fresh,
Yeah.
And we appreciate that.
How do you try and harness that power? Like, do you go personally and make it a goal to try and talk to people and connect with them one-on-one? Like, how do you get that feedback?
So when we first moved to our new building, I made it a point to connect with each department and wanted to talk with each and every employee to see what we should do and what we shouldn't do going forward. And I think I like to have those conversations from time to time for various reasons, but more so like this year has been, people have talked about the great exit, and we've seen some of it. And, it's kind of something that we want to roll with. And but I want to see what we can do better. So it's important to connect with the people. So I do that. I like to connect with each department from time to time, talk to each and every employee on a very casual basis. No bars, nobody's going to hold you responsible for what you said. So
Right.
In that way. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about how you try and take a step back from the business and see the big picture, maybe see the forest for the trees, through the trees. So tell me a little bit about the vision of Kubtec, like what you see over the horizon, where the business is going, like kind of what's the vision?
I think businesses have their own DNA, and where do I see Kubtec in the next 5 years? I can kind of express that I would like to bring it to a level where right now we have 40 employees on site and 20 away from us, but that size needs to double at least in the next 2 years. And business needs to grow dynamically in that way. I wanted to see Kubtec be a leader in the niche that we are in. I don't like to compare myself to any other companies because we can't.
Right. Got to run your own race.
Yes.
You don't want to be a follower. You want to be a leader.
Absolutely. And I think our race is against us, not against anybody else, honestly.
What do you see as like the things you need to work on internally that will help you get to that vision? Like when you think about, you said the race is internal.
Yes.
So when you think about those things, what are like 2 or 3 of the key things you think you're going to need to improve on or work on that will help you reach that vision?
So I think for Vikram's part, he needs to work on the technology because technology goes extinct literally every year.
Fast.
So it's, it's something that we've always been on top of.
Yeah.
We provide cutting edge, solutions, and we want to keep doing that. That's his part. And for me, I feel I want to grow the culture to that of a tech culture because if we want to attract good talent, keep the people, with us, then we need to do that. As far as how we are seen in the world, it's kind of important to project a progressive image of a company that may be making boring, box X-ray machines, but we're really doing some cool things in there.
Yeah, making real impact, that's for sure.
Yes.
So as we're like moving forward, you kind of have this interesting component. You want to be a tech company, which you guys are, right? You're making technology. Yes. I mean, we talked about not voice activated, but voice commanded, voice controlled,
AI.
3D, AI empowered imaging. Like that's some high tech stuff, right?
Yes.
And then at the same time, you still have to deal with all of the challenges that a manufacturing company has to deal with, right?
Absolutely.
You've got hardware, supply chain issues, manufacturing challenges. Is that hard to balance those 2 different types of businesses?
I think Connecticut is a special state in that way. So I think Connecticut has a history of being a manufacturing state, and that went away for a long, long time. And I think we have the opportunity to do that again. So I like the opportunity that we have here. Can we grow it? It's very challenging because, like I said, it's very hard to retain people in the state of Connecticut. But we've seen an influx of, crazy amounts of people moving to the state, and I'm hopeful that we can keep them interested in the state of Connecticut not have them go and work in New York.
Yeah. Keep a lot of those young people around to kind of build that. That's really great. And it's really admirable what you guys are doing. And I really appreciate you coming on and like sharing your story with me and the audience. It's really been fascinating. And I thank you very much.
You. Can I just say one last thing?
Please, go ahead.
Breast cancer is very challenging for women. And as much as I'm building a company or we're building a company, it's really to service that group of people because their life becomes very challenging going forward. And if for whatever reason we can reduce their pain for even by a little bit, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. That's almost like giving back a little bit.
That's huge. And that goes back to the thing I was talking about before, which is one thing that I think Kubtec can really offer that very few people can offer is making that kind of impact on humanity, on people's lives, on the lives of women all over the world. It's a really, really powerful story, and I'm glad to have had the opportunity to tell it.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct, a CompassMSP company.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.